Hello, this is Janet Michael. In addition to hosting The Valley Today each weekday at noon on the River 95.3, I also produce podcasts, and I'm excited to introduce you to a new podcast series in partnership with Lord Fairfax Community College. Having provided higher education and career training for the past half-century, LFCC is tightly interwoven into the fabric of the Northern Shenandoah Valley and Piedmont regions. Join me every week for conversations with current and former students to hear their funny and inspiring stories as we learn about their journey to higher education, the role that LFCC has played, where they are now, and where they plan to go. We'll also talk to current and former professors about their experiences and best memories of LFCC over the past 50 years. Get every single episode as they're released on our website at theriver953.com under the podcast tab, or you can subscribe for free in Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, on Spotify, Amazon Music, wherever you listen to podcasts. Just search for LFCC Stories. Hello and welcome to The Valley Today. I am your host, Janet Michael. Happy Monday. As you are listening to the show today, we have pre-recorded our conversation to talk about the virus. We have not talked about COVID-19 in quite some time because, silly me, I thought we were coming out of this pandemic. But as we are about to learn from my guest, Dr. Jeffrey Feit, he is the Valley Health Population and Community Health Officer, or as I like to refer to him, he is my personal Dr. Fauci.
High praise. How are you, Jen? Good talk to you.
I am good, Dr. Feit. So I understand we're not out of this yet, and it's not over.
Yeah, it's not over till it's over, right? That's the old saying. So we have started to see internationally some countries which we thought they had this behind them start to have spikes. And now we've started to see it domestically with increases in cases in Florida and Missouri and Arkansas specifically. And a lot of it's being fueled by the new variants, and it's really concerning. They're a little bit different than the original virus in their level of contagiousness and probably in their level of severity, and it's got us all a bit concerned.
Now, am I correct in understanding that the variants happen because the original virus, the original contagion, was let go for too long? If you don't treat it first, it tends to morph the more people and the longer it's out there? Or is that not really a good way to explain how variants happen? You're the doctor. You tell me. How do variants happen?
That wasn't that bad. No, that's sort of kind of right. So think of it this way. Every time a cell divides, there's the chance that there's going to be a mutation in the way those chromosomes split, right? So every time there's cell development or cell growth, there's a chance something goes wrong. And so the more times cells divide, the more chances there are for there to become a new variant. And so it's kind of like what you said. So each time there's a new infection, each time there's viral replication within a host, usually a human, for every human that has the illness, and every time more virus is made, there's a chance of an error. So that's billions and billions and billions and billions and billions of viral particles. And so every once in a while, some of those errors, some of those mutations are significant enough that the virus actually dies, right? The change is too big and the virus is no longer functional. But occasionally there's just a slight change in the virus. And that can be good or bad, but the danger is that it leads to variants that are just as good or better at infecting the host and then have different effects on the host once they're infected. And so this gets pretty complicated because something which is much more severe. So some of the other coronaviruses were much more severe. And so they were actually more life-threatening if you got them, but they killed their hosts so effectively that you couldn't have this sort of a pandemic because they killed people too quickly.
Okay. That makes sense. Morbid, but it makes sense.
Yeah. So there's this very dangerous sweet spot where something has a long prodrome. In other words, you can spread it before you know you're sick. And then once it's spread, the effect it has on you doesn't matter because it's already replicated itself. It's already found new hosts. So there's infectiousness, which is measured by something that epidemiologists call the R value. And then there's severity, which is an independent variable. So let's talk about infectiousness first. Before we started distancing and masking and doing all sorts of public health measures, the R value of the original Wuhan strain was thought to be about 2.7. And what that means is for every one person that gets it, they'll give it to 2.7 people on average. So you start with 10 people who are sick, you end up with 27 people who are sick. As long as that number is greater than 1, more people are getting it and it's growing in the population. So if you think of it, if it's 1.1, you're going to have more every day, but it's going to be just a little bit more.
Right.
If it's 2, then you're getting twice as many, and it's cycles, right? So that it's not a straight line curve; it's a drawing for you in my hand. But it's not a straight line. It becomes a parabola, right? It starts to accelerate. Exponential growth is the term. So 2.7 is bad, and I think what we were able to do with a combination of the vaccine and masking and distancing is get that below 1, and so in fact we started to see drops in the number of people who have it. The bad news about Delta is that the estimate of Delta's R value is somewhere between 6 and 8.
Wow.
Yeah, so 8, to give you a frame of reference, is the same as smallpox.
Wow. Again, they can't see my face on the Zoom screen, but I am in shock.
Yeah, so that's the worry. This variant started in India during that terrible outbreak last month, where hundreds of thousands of people died, and is now the number. It's 99% of new cases in England right now are Delta. And what's interesting, if you look at England's new outbreak, is England is doing really well with vaccines. And so what they're seeing is enough spread amongst the unvaccinated population. So even if you cut the population in half, even if only half the population is at risk, it's contagious enough that you're still seeing upticks in the illness in the community because it's just that much more contagious. So from a contagiousness perspective, it's more contagious, and it's 2 to 3 times more contagious, which again, it's 2 to 3 times every day. So it's not a straight line that's twice as fast. It's a curve that goes up faster or higher. We're still waiting for more information, I think, on how much more dangerous it is, how much sicker people get. A Canadian study looked at this, was pretty concerning. It was about twice as dangerous. The fatality rate was twice as high. Again, that's going to be complicated to measure and follow because thankfully a lot of the people at the highest risk have the highest vaccination rates. So I'm not suggesting that we had 600,000 people die in the first couple of waves. Now we're going to have 1.2 million people die. I'm not saying that. But I am saying that for a given 50-year-old who's unvaccinated, their risk from the original virus compared to the risk of this virus is twice as bad.
Which is a really big deal when you can get a vaccine practically on any street corner.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I mean, it's a big deal for all of us. It's probably worth adding in the beginning. So the other question that comes from this, I think, right away is the question of how effective are the vaccines in preventing illness from the Delta variant? So let's talk about the original strain. So the effectiveness of the vaccines on the original strain. Pfizer did its original study, and the way they did it was they gave 20,000 people the vaccine and 20,000 people a placebo, and then they waited till they had 300 cases of illness, and then they unblinded it and asked, of the 300 people who have COVID, who's vaccinated and who's not? And what they found was that 285 of them were not, and 15 were. 95% effective. That's where that number comes from. So what we found now with millions of people, millions and millions and millions of people getting the vaccine, that it is 99+% effective at preventing hospitalizations and death. 99.5% of all the people that have died in America this year from COVID are unvaccinated. And it's still very effective at reducing even mild illness from the original Wuhan strain. So 95+% effective in practice at even eliminating mild illness. And beyond that, if you have mild or asymptomatic illness and you're vaccinated, you shed less virus. So to your point, shed less virus, fewer replications, less chance of mutations and more spread. So that's Wuhan, original plain
1.0.
Yeah, 1.0, yeah, plain Jane COVID, right? So now with Delta, the data looks to be a little bit worse in all those categories. It still looks like it's 99% effective at preventing death. So that's the best news. It's also really protective against hospitalizations and ICU stays. But as far as mild illness, it's maybe 75% effective. So why does that matter? Do I care as a vaccinated person if I get a mild case of Delta? Well, I do kind of care. I mean, COVID's still a bad disease, and I can get long COVID, and I can get other things, but I'm probably not going to die from it. But I can give it to somebody else. So now we're back to this question of vaccinated people who have mild illness or asymptomatic illness are back to being spreaders, which makes it even more dangerous for the unvaccinated. This is where we are just begging people to please, please, please think about this and get vaccinated. And I'm happy to talk about vaccine myths and the things people are saying and do a little myth debunking. We can do some of that. But my emphasis right now, and everyone I talk to, is please go get some information about these vaccines. They are safe, they are effective, and Delta is coming like a freight train.
And what you're saying too about how effective these vaccines are is not new medicine. Those are the same types of outcomes you can expect when I was getting my kids vaccinated. Josh's pediatrician, Dr. Caldwell, when he got the chickenpox vaccine, said, we're going to give him this vaccine. It doesn't mean he's not going to get chickenpox, but if he does, it's going to be a much milder case. The flu vaccine, same exact thing. There's no guarantee. What you're doing is trying to lower the level of the effect that it has on you and ideally the spread in and of itself.
Yeah, that's one of the ironies is that the 99+% reducing the risk of death, these are the most effective vaccines we've ever seen. A lot of vaccines benefit from the low prevalence of the disease they're trying to prevent, right? So a 90% effective measles vaccine is still super effective because measles is fortunately incredibly rare. And all you have to do is have your R value eventually get down below 1, and then the disease goes away and exposures are really rare. These vaccines are 99+% effective at preventing death while a disease is still really common. That's extraordinary. And it really is worth talking for a minute about the safety profiles. So what do we know about the safety profile of these vaccines? We know that billions of doses have been given worldwide. Over 150 million Americans have been vaccinated. And we are aware of 3 bad side effects, all of which are real and all of which matter, but they're all incredibly rare. Single-digit cases of an extremely dangerous blood clot from the Johnson & Johnson shot. So women under 50, there were very, very rare, sort of 1 in a million terrible blood clots, came off the market, was reviewed. They didn't find more cases, and so they put it back. About 800 cases of a inflammation of the heart called myocarditis with the mRNA vaccines in young men. No one's died from that. A couple of cases were pretty serious, but again, very, very rare. 130 million people have received those vaccines. And then most recently, they've shown that there's a doubling or tripling of a rare neurologic disease called Guillain-Barré. Its current total is 100 cases out of the 15 million people that have now received Johnson & Johnson. So I gave you the early number on Johnson & Johnson. That's when we heard about the blood clots first 2 months ago. Now in Johnson & Johnson's up to 15 million shots, and we have found 100 cases of Guillain-Barré. The background you would have expected is about 30, so that's an increase. But again, those are fewer than 1,000 total bad events out of 150 million people being vaccinated, and thousands and thousands and thousands of lives saved from COVID. Those are the real data around those vaccines. They're incredibly effective and incredibly safe.
Let's take a quick break. And when we come back, let's bust some of those myths, because I feel like at this point, I could even bust a few of them myself. Sure. Not that I just haven't wanted to punch people in the face for some of the ones that they say. I will tell you, there have been moments where I've just wanted to strangle somebody when they give me some of these excuses, but I'll let you be the professional and give me the professional answers.
Let's start with the strangling issue too. I want to talk about that too.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to continue our conversation. We are pre-recording today with Dr. Jeffrey Feit. He is Valley Health's Population and Community Health Officer. We were talking about the Delta variant, and we're still talking about the COVID-19 vaccine, because if you haven't gotten it, you should go get it. We'll tell you why when we come back.
Got a financial decision to make or a goal to reach, but you don't know where to start? You've come to the right place. Introducing Quick Money Chats with the Northern Shenandoah Valley Financial Education Program. Visit tinyurl.com/quickmoneychat to schedule a virtual chat with a staff member or trained volunteer. We won't tell you what to do, but we will give you the tools you need to choose wisely. And because Virginia Cooperative Extension is part of Virginia Tech and Virginia State, your land-grant universities, you can be sure that our information is credible and trustworthy. And you'll know that we aren't trying to sell you something. Maybe you want to improve your credit score, or reduce your banking overdraft fees, or even figure out if you can afford to buy that car. Sorting through tons of information on the internet can be overwhelming, and sometimes it can be hard to know who to trust. Schedule a Quick Money Chat and get the information you need to take action. Go to tinyurl.com/quickmoneychat and get financial education personalized for you.
Welcome back to the Valley today. I am your host, Janet Michael. Happy Monday as you are listening to the show today. We, of course, have pre-recorded our conversation, and it's probably good because I have managed to work out some of my anxiety and annoyance. One of my favorite people is pre-recording with me today. Dr. Jeffrey Feit is joining us. He is Valley Health's Population and Community Health Officer. We've been talking about, Dr. Feit, in the first segment, the Delta variant, how it happened and how much more of a big deal it is than I think you called it the Mary Jane version of COVID, the original version of
I think I said
Plain Jane. That's what it was. Plain Jane version of COVID-19. I am at my wit's end trying to convince not just friends and coworkers, but at this point, absolute strangers in line behind me at Target, why they need to get the vaccine. And I just want to start strangling people or punching them in the face. So you got to give me some more tools here.
I don't want you to hit anybody. I don't want you to get in trouble. We've had a lot of conversations here at Valley Health. We've chosen to require our team to be vaccinated later this fall, or later this summer, I should say, early fall. And so we've had a lot of conversations, and I think it's really important that those conversations come from a place of mutual respect and understanding. I think people are trying. We live in a day where access to information tends to be segmented by the source of the information, and it's hard for people to break out of that and seek new sources of information. And on a topic like this, which unfortunately has become politicized, and one of the first things I say when I get in front of people is, look, this is a vaccine that was invented and championed effectively by President Trump and his administration. I give them full credit. Operation Warp Speed is a smashing success. So championed by a Republican administration and distributed by a Democratic one, it might literally be the only bipartisan thing in America right now.
Right.
And this is not about politics. And I ask people, look, all I ask you to do if you're seeking information about this vaccine, and I'm happy to go over some myths and talk about what I know, but to do a little experiment in your mind. If you had a relative, a loved one, a parent, a child, a brother, a sister, a spouse, whatever, and that person needed healthcare for something serious, you pick your favorite hospital. You pick your Harvard, your Yale, your Penn, your Stanford, Duke, Cleveland Clinic, Mayo Clinic, whatever, Hopkins, whatever you think is the best hospital in America. Just go to their website. I don't know what you're going to pick, but I know what they're all going to say. I know that every leading hospital in America is going to say, please, please, please get vaccinated. And if it goes past that and you're worried that there's some sort of national, I don't want to use the word conspiracy because that gets us back down the politics train, but if there's some sort of shared information amongst us domestic folks where we're all saying the same thing, but we're all wrong, I just want to remind everybody that the oversight of these vaccines and the counting of side effects and the observation and watching is happening in many countries at the same time, all across the world, and they're not communicating with each other. They're coming to the same conclusion independently. And whereas in the United States, some people are critical of this VAERS system, which is our vaccine reporting system where we watch for side effects, other countries doing this work in England and Sweden and Denmark and all over the world have national healthcare systems with a shared medical record, and they can actually mine the medical records looking for side effects. So there is a ton of oversight of these vaccines and people watching all the time, and there are several choices. So if one turns out to have problems, there's an incentive for every one of these countries to say, hey, AstraZeneca's not so good, let's move to Moderna, or Pfizer's not so good, let's move to Johnson & Johnson. So there's really an international effort to get this right, and there's a ton of oversight, and I feel incredibly confident about that work being done.
So what do you say to somebody who says, well, I already had COVID, I don't need to get the vaccine, I should be covered?
Yeah, that's a great one to start with. This is probably one of the more complicated ones. So there's plenty of studies on this. There are about 10 studies that I found on this, the best ones out of Denmark. And what it says is that natural immunity from a COVID infection gives about 80% protection for about 6 months. That's what the data says. So it's pretty good. So what I say to those people is don't get vaccinated in the first 3 months. It'll work, but it'll be uncomfortable. You'll get a big response. And that booster effect will make you feel bad for a couple of days. So you're safe for the first 3 months. Don't do it then. Get vaccinated in this 3 to 6 month window. There's two reasons. One is that there's some studies that now show that the antibody levels from the vaccine stay higher longer than natural immunity. We don't know exactly how long you stay immune from the shot, but we think it's longer than 6 months. And we definitely know that people have gotten COVID twice. We have had people come through our health system who've gotten COVID twice. So after 6 months, there's some lessening of immunity that we see in practical terms. We think the vaccines are longer. And eventually, once we figure that out and we know when to give boosters, you'll already have your base series and you'll be able to get your boosters. The other thing that came out of the National Institutes of Health on this last week, or maybe 2 weeks ago now, was they looked under a microscope at where the antibodies actually bind to the virus. And the binding is better on the variants from the vaccine antibodies than from the natural antibodies. So if you've had Wuhan, the original Wuhan COVID, you're not going to be as immune to Delta, probably based on the microscope, as you will if you get a vaccine. It remains to be seen if we see that in real life. Microscope data and real life data can differ sometimes, but the initial signs are that your safety from the variant is going to be higher if you get the vaccine. And that's the CDC recommendation.
Now, I have busted the myth myself to people that there is no microchip involved in these vaccines, no more so than the microchip that's in your phone or the daily postings of what you're doing and who you're doing it with on Facebook that you're making. There's no tracking mechanism in this vaccine. Please, for the record, just say that out loud for me.
So I'm gonna disagree with one thing you said, which is no more so than your phone. Your phone actually does have a chip in it.
Exactly.
And people actually do get information from that. So it's the hardest myths to debunk are the ones that are really not grounded in any truth. But if there's something I can say about that, it's so yes, that's not true. There's no tracking devices in the vaccines. But to be the most practical about that, and to give people who have a tendency to want to believe that some solace. One of the hardest things about these vaccines has been that they're all multi-dose vials. We actually don't have any vaccine right now that comes in single dose vials. So even if you were someone who wanted to believe, hey, there's a microchip in your vaccine, we've got a bottle with 10 doses in it. How would you possibly get one microchip in each syringe? If you've ever watched the people give the shots, you realize how impossible that would be, even if someone wanted to do it.
Okay, so here's one that I will admit I had no comeback for. It was from someone who has served in the military and served overseas. And their argument to me was they had served for many years and they had been poked and prodded and vaccinated against all sorts of things. They were out of the military now and they were done with vaccines, period.
I mean, that's not really an argument against the vaccine. That person is at risk for COVID. And my argument to them, my response to them would be, thank you so much for your service. I'm so glad you're home safely. And I really want you to stay safe and not die from this virus. And the best way to prevent that is for you to get vaccinated, and please reconsider it's safe and effective.
And let's talk about vaccinations for a second, because you really can get them anywhere now and they don't cost a dime.
No, they're free and they're widely available, and you really can pick and choose which one you want at this point.
Are there people though that can't get them? Because that's the other piece that I keep trying to explain to people, that there are people with some health conditions that can't get them, which is why more people being vaccinated than not is so very important.
Yeah, so let's pick that apart a little bit. So the only people that strictly can't get them are people who have severe allergic reactions to the components of the vaccine. That's really the only medical contraindication. There are some other super rare circumstances that require a little head scratching and that we've called some experts about. But on the labels, on the package insert labels, the only true contraindication is allergy to the and these molecules, these vaccines, because they were produced with no preservatives, there's not much in them. So it's pretty hard to be allergic to them. But if you're allergic to everything, then you could have an allergy issue. The other people that you're describing, so that's part of what you said. There's a myth out there that people who are immunocompromised can't get vaccinated. That's actually not true. In fact, people who are immunocompromised should especially want to get vaccinated, because what they really fear is COVID, right? If your immune system doesn't work well, you really need the vaccine, because the thing that's going to hurt you isn't the vaccine, it's COVID. So the challenge for those people is if they're on medicines that reduce their immune response, the vaccine might not be as effective. They don't get the antibody response the same way. The sort of snarky remark amongst doctors is they don't need the vaccine, they need the vaccine twice. So we don't really have a protocol for that yet. So we'd give them the vaccine, we'd give them the booster. They'll be under the care of some doctor who might say, hey, you should probably get a third shot. And that's going to be art of medicine stuff. We don't have data on that yet. But it's definitely not true that immunosuppressed people can't get the vaccine. There are rare circumstances where people are temporarily immunosuppressed because they're on a short treatment. And those folks might want to wait till they're off that drug to get vaccinated so that the vaccine works better.
So it really is a case by case basis. It's not this general blanketed thing that if you're sick, you shouldn't get it. That's not the point.
No, it's the other way around. The more chronic medical problems you have, the more you need it. Those are the people who are at risk to die.
Do you think there are going to be more variants coming down the pike, or do you think Delta is going to usurp and become the new COVID?
The answer to your second question is yes. I do think Delta is going to become the version of COVID we all see for the next period of time. Whether it's able to get worse than that. The thing with variants is that the virus doesn't care, right? So all the virus is trying to do is replicate and find a host, and it'll continue to replicate and find hosts until it can't anymore. So there are characteristics of viruses that make them more survivable in our world. It all depends. So a longer prodrome, a longer period of time where people shed virus before they personally get sick, is a survival mechanism for a virus, because then you can get more virus out in the world before you destroy your host, or before your host destroys you. Hard to predict. But certainly the fact is, the more virus that's out there in the world, and I mean the world, the more virus that's out there in the world, the more chance there is for another dangerous variant. And this can happen over a day, over months, or it can happen over decades, right? I mean, these are, we've had other coronaviruses come out that fortunately those variants were not as dangerous.
Do you think it's more likely than not that there will be a booster shot in the next 6 months to a year?
My friend Dr. Green and I have had a friendly disagreement about this for a little while. The jury's still out. I've always been on the side of boosters. I've always thought there were going to be boosters. And the reason I think that is because when we look at most of the shots we give our kids, most of them have 4, 5, 6 shot regimens over the course of many years, right? Your tetanus shot is the classic one. You get 5 shots in the first couple of years, and then you need one every couple of years, and then every 10 years. So it's pretty common to need boosters. Colin was pointing out that, Dr. Green was pointing out that certain adult vaccines, like the shingles vaccines, 2 shots and you're done. Pneumonia is 1 shot and you're done. So there are some precedents for it not needing it. But my guess is we're going to need boosters, yeah. And the higher levels of antibodies seem to protect you better against Delta. One thing I didn't mention earlier about the vaccines in Delta, which is pretty telling, is the protection from 1 vaccine shot was pretty good for the original strain.
COVID 1.0.
COVID 1.0, yeah. 1 shot was reasonably good against that. It's not against Delta. People with 1 shot are very susceptible to Delta. You need both shots.
Wow.
You need the higher antibody levels.
Well, I got to tell you personally, I've been kind of relieved that while there was the stuff in the news about the Johnson and Johnson, and then there was something recently in the news about Pfizer, I got Moderna. It seems to be the best one of all. So I am pretty excited that so far I'm in the clear.
Yeah, they're all incredibly effective, and we're lucky to have every one of them.
And I remember one of our very first conversations when we were talking about this, it might have been when they were just about to release that they had a vaccine that was effective. You said to me, if it is 70 to 75% effective, I am all in and I will get that shot the second that it is available to me. And then I remember when it came out and we had the conversation, you were like, 95% is just crazy. You can't not get it.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. Remember we looked at those graphs with the line and the 95%, for folks who've never seen these sort of graphs that we show, the failure rate was all in that first 10 days. The risk of getting COVID after 10 days of getting this first shot, it just goes flat. It's incredibly effective, and it's kept a really strong effectiveness even with Delta. So that's really great.
And I will say from my personal experience, and I hope I've knocked this down with a lot of the people that I've talked to, because some people were saying, well, I'm not going to get it because I hear you have a really bad reaction. And all I can argue with them about is what my reaction was and what my husband and my son's reaction were, because I know what they were firsthand. And it wasn't in the hospital connected to life support, having my family called in to be told that I am not going to make it through the night. I felt like crap for maybe 24 hours. And it was a great excuse to lay around, do nothing, and eat ice cream. So
that's about right. I think that's right. I don't want to get confused between people. And look, I don't want to minimize feeling bad for a day or two. That's bad. Nobody wants that. But it's not COVID. You can't get COVID from the shot. It's another good myth to bust. There's no live COVID in the shot, so you can't get it from the shot. What you can get is a reaction in a day or two of feeling bad, for sure.
So we're going to wrap up. Is there anything else you want to say before we call it a show?
There was another thing I wanted to mention if we have 2 more minutes. We've gotten a lot of questions about Valley Health's requirement to have our employees and our team be vaccinated. And I wanted to take a minute, if I could, to talk about that.
Absolutely. I appreciate that is a step that you guys are taking.
So Valley Health's mission is to serve the community by improving health. And our chief operating principle is that we want to get to the place where things that should happen, happen, and things that should not happen, do not happen 100% of the time. It's called high reliability. And as we struggled with a lot of these things, and we have an amazing team, and we're so grateful for everything our team has done for the last 15, 16 months to care for this community. It's a difficult time for us to turn to those same people and say, hey, for some of you, I know this is hard, but we really need you to do this. And here's where it comes down to is we respect every one of our employees, and we respect everybody all your listeners. This is an individual decision. And I want people to understand that the vaccine is safe and effective, but I respect in the end that this is a personal choice. And you know my personal history, Janet, is that my wife is an immigrant from an authoritarian country whose father essentially gave his life to get his daughter and her children, my children, to a place where they have personal freedoms. This is very near and dear to my heart. I appreciate that we all have a decision to make, which is our decision. The challenge of that is that those decisions, as much as we need the ability to make them, do have consequences. And for Valley Health right now, our need to have a vaccinated workforce to prevent harm to our patients. We know people can catch COVID in the hospital. We know people can catch all kinds of illnesses in the hospital. That's not a new problem. This is a dangerous illness, and we have the ability to significantly reduce the chance that somebody's going to get it in one of our buildings. That's something we have to do. And while we respect our employees' need and we honor the importance of their ability to make their own decision, sometimes that decision might simply mean they can't work in healthcare right now. And I feel for them. If I were a doctor who made his living in healthcare and I had to make a decision to do something that I was really uncomfortable with, that would be a very difficult position, and I get it. So I just want to share that. This is a decision rooted in our high reliability commitment and our and our absolute dedication to our mission, which is to serve the community by improving health. And we respect all of our employees and hope we can bring them along in this journey. And we really hope that they're able to get vaccinated and stay on the team and be part of the next great journey that we're going to all take together. But that's where it comes from. It's really from a place of love for our patients and respect for our team. And we're hopeful that we can move forward together.
When I got the press release last week, I thought to myself, this was a smart option, because as someone who could have a heart attack tomorrow, I want to know that when I'm coming to the place I'm coming to get care, that all of the boxes have been checked to make it as safe for me to be there as possible.
Patients have asked us, hey, is everybody going to be taking care of me vaccinated?
I'm still waiting to go somewhere and somebody to ask for my card. I'm a little annoyed that nobody has asked me for my vaccination card because I carry it with me everywhere I go.
Get a tattoo.
No, I'm not going that far. I might get it on a t-shirt, but I'm not getting it in a tattoo. Dr. Feit, thank you so much for chatting with me today. I appreciate it.
Good to see you as always. Thank you very much for the time. I appreciate it.
I will be back tomorrow. It is Tourism Tuesday. Maybe back here a few minutes after noon.